The member for Timmins-Gems Bay has up to 5 minutes to respond.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You will know in this House I asked the Minister of Northern Development and Mines yesterday a question, and it was a very simple one. During the last leadership campaign, we had a number of leadership candidates who went around Northern Ontario trying to garner votes from the people of the North and said, listen, they were prepared to revisit the question of the privatization of the ONTC. In fact, a number of those candidates went as far as saying there should be a pause on the privatization of the ONTC. So we know that's what was said during the leadership campaign. But what's clear is that Northerners have been saying to this government since last year, we think that privatization is the wrong way to go. We don't see, for example, the government moving to privatize GO Transit. That would be a wrong-headed idea. If you tried to privatize GO Transit, I would argue that would be the wrong thing to do. But this government, for whatever reason, I'm just wondering when that conversation was going to end. I was just saying, if you take a look at what Northerners have been saying from the beginning, they have been saying that it's important that we not only have a discussion between Northerners and this government about how we can make the ONTC work, but we also said what's important that the government give some time for that process to work. Nobody in Northern Ontario expects that we'll be able to find a solution to the issues at ONTC in a couple of seconds. We understand there are challenges. You're trying to run a rail system across a vast geography of northeastern Ontario with a very small population. Thus, it's going to cost money to be able to run it. For over 100 years, governments in this province have understood that there is a role for the provincial government because it was an agency set up by the Crown to be able to fund this particular organization by providing a means of subsidy. Now, the government says, oh, subsidization is bad. We're wasting a lot of money spending money on the ONTC. Well, you don't see anybody in Northern Ontario saying we should stop giving a subsidy to GO Transit. We give $500 million a year to GO Transit. And people in Northern Ontario say rightfully so. We don't argue for minutes when we see money being transferred to other organizations and other transit organizations across this province in order to support cities like Toronto, Hamilton, Oshawa, Ottawa, and others. We say rightfully so. The only thing that we want the government to do is to treat us as the same class of citizens as everybody else in this province is treated. And we're asking for the government to treat Northern Ontario no different than anybody else. So we say we agree with the former Premier and we agree with the former Minister of the Treasury to look at, are there better ways of running the ONTC? The truth is, governments over the past number of years have not allowed the ONTC to run the way that it should in order to lessen its reliance on the subsidy and at the same time of providing a better service. So we said, let the North rise to that challenge. Let's put together a group of people, not just mayors, but mayors, people that work in the rail, people that take the passenger rail service or used to take it, people that are shippers, people that are part of the ONTC family of services, and put those people on a committee to say, how can we run this organization in a way that we can increase the revenue? And give us the proper amount of time to be able to do that. So what New Democrats have asked for, John Vantoff, my good colleague from south of me out at Timiskaming and Cochrane, and Andrea Horvath and other New Democrats have called for, is to put this entire process on pause and to give us an opportunity as Northerners for us to look at what can be done in order to get the ONTC running the way that it should. And we thought for a little while that there was a chance that that was going to happen. I had conversations with the Minister of Northern Development and Mines, along with Mr. Vantoff and Mr. Mantha. We had conversations with the Minister of Infrastructure, and there seemed to be a bit of a willingness to push the pause button. We were actually expecting at one point that the government might actually announce that they would do what we'd asked them to do. And we would have stood in this House and we would have said, job well done. Because all the North wants is an opportunity to be part of the process to be able to find the solutions. We don't want to be told by Queen's Park. We don't want to be told by this provincial government what's best for us. We want to be able to ourselves to have the destiny in our own hands to be able to come up with some of the solutions. So I say to the government again, and I say to the minister across the way, we're asking for two things. We're asking that a proper committee be set up in order to study this issue of how can we make the ONTC a better organization as a public entity, and to do so we are asking you to press the pause button. Only by pressing the pause button we will have the time to be able to do what needs to be done. If you do that, I think most people in northeastern Ontario would be pretty happy if you did so. So I ask the government again, will you press the pause button and stop the privatization in its tracks?
Thank you. The Minister of Northern Development and Mines has up to 5 minutes to respond.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the support beside me. The Attorney General is here with me, and my colleagues from the New Democratic Party caucus. Thank you very much for the opportunity to respond. And certainly, I mean, I do understand what an important issue this is for everyone in northeastern Ontario. I was up in North Bay on Monday. As you know, we formed our Ministerial Advisory Committee, and I certainly saw the signs, and I talked to the people, and I recognize how important this is. And may I say, we do indeed understand how important the ONTC is as obviously a transportation and telecommunications business and agency in northeastern Ontario, and it's something that we are committed to making sure that we indeed put in place or keep in place a sustainable ONTC and a sustainable transportation system. I mean, the reality is, and my good friend from Timmins, James Bay, certainly referenced it in part of his remarks leading up to this, that indeed with the ONTC we have seen an agency over the last 10 years certainly that has received increasing dollars going into it from a government point of view, increasing almost every year, going up from 2003, but also one where the revenues have not certainly kept pace with that, and obviously the business lines have not been as successful as we think they could be. And one of the interesting parts of the discussion that we had on Monday with the Ministerial Advisory Group that I put in place, and I think it's a really good one, and may I say it was Premier Wynne that asked me as Minister to do this, was to truly find a way to listen to Northerners. I will not speak very much, may I say, about the past, in the sense that there have decisions that were made were tough decisions, but I think moving forward, I believe that we can find a way to make the right decisions. And I do think that in the right decisions for how can we see that the ONTC, in the form it takes, potentially obviously with private sector partners, can be one that can be a better system. I mean, the fact is that ultimately, I think there's no question we need to make sure that the business lines that are in place and the services that are provided need to be maintained, and we need a transportation strategy in northeastern Ontario, in fact all across northern Ontario, that makes sense for Northerners, that speaks to the economic viability, the economic opportunities that are there in the north. So the committee that's being set up, made up of I mean, perhaps if I have enough time I'll mention the members, but certainly President Alan Spacek from Phenom, Mayor Al McDonald from North Bay, Tom Logan from Timmins, Nina Wallace from Englehart.
Great people, great people.
Great, well, they're all great people. Representatives from industry, obviously the shippers, and First Nation representatives, Chief Isidore Day, obviously from Southern River First Nation, Franz Peacock from Métis Nation, Ontario. We're asking them to absolutely give us the kind of advice to make sure that the criteria is put in place that meets the standard that people in northeastern Ontario would expect, and certainly our government expect, in terms of making sure that indeed the potential, if we do privatize, and as you would know, all of you across the way here, it's not necessarily in opposition to privatization. It's making sure we protect the service, protect the jobs. I mean, it is interesting that even in terms of the Ontario telecommunications proposal that went out, we released the RFP a couple of days ago, and I mean a very significant part of the criteria was their plans for sustainable employment and their service continuity and their investment in Northern Ontario. Up to about 60%, you take those two pieces. So what we're saying to the group that we are asking to help advise us is, one of the key elements will be, you will be helping us provide us with the criteria by which we will set the standard for what future proposals will go out there for an RFP potentially, for privatization. In other words, these are the standards in which we need to meet. We need to make sure that these services are provided. So, listen, I can't believe that I'm running out of time, and I'm sure you felt the same way when you were speaking. There's so many other aspects of this. I say this with the greatest sincerity. We are very genuine about the fact that this Ministerial Advisory Committee is one that's going to be providing the kind of advice that will be very, very useful in making sure and guaranteeing that indeed, what comes comes next will actually provide the services that Northeastern Ontario people expect, those standards. We're going to be committed to that. We're going to work hard with that. And I can tell you, I mean, certainly I look forward to working with my colleagues for any advice you give me, and I appreciate the advice you gave me today. Thanks so very much.
Well said. Well said.
There being no further matter to debate, I deem the motion to adjourn to be carried. Therefore, this House stands adjourned until 9 a.m. tomorrow.